Hey everyone, Summer Howard here. Just giving people a few more minutes to join. I was alerted that some of us needed to download an app. So I'm going to give one more minute and then I'm going to start. Happy Saturday. Good morning. Hello everyone. I'm Summer Howard, divorce mediator, divorce coach, former CFI. And thank you so much for joining me this very cold Saturday. January 13th. I'm so excited to have this seminar on how to divorce in 2024. What I'm calling the empowered path. If you're on this journey of divorce, you know that it's really overwhelming and confusing. And so the purpose of today's seminar is to show you a way that could be more clear and sow the seeds of peace in your life as it pertains to your divorce journey. So I'm going to get started here. Can someone type in that they can see my presentation? Can you hear and see me? Let's see. Yes, okay, thank you. All right. So welcome. I think this morning it clocked in at -10 when I was making coffee this morning. So I hope it's a little warmer where you are. We're in an Arctic blast. I'm Summer Howard, again, founder of Boulder Divorce Mediation. I'm a divorce mediator, a certified divorce coach, a former child and family investigator, and I love working with families to find peaceful resolutions during divorce. And I've been doing so since 2013. So here's today's agenda. We're going to go through this path. I'm calling it the empowered path. We're going to start at the beginning, all the way through each milestone into the life after divorce. So we're going to talk about the beginning stages, verifying where you're at, the things that you're going through. Then we're going to talk about choosing how, and how are we going to divorce? How are you going to come to a peaceful resolution? Because most of us that get into divorce, even though it can be high conflict, it can be very painful, really what we want in the end is a peaceful way forward and some loving kindness to ourselves and to each other during the process, but then to also make sure that we get what we need out of the process. So we're going to talk about choosing how. Then the decision-making marathon. I'm going to go through each of the things that are required, each of the decisions that are required to be made during this process. And then I have some tips on co-parenting. After the divorce is final, you're still parenting, right? You're still parenting for the rest of your child's life. So how do you set it up for success? And then, of course, I have this little icon of life after divorce. I really do believe it's a sunrise. Your life after divorce is something to celebrate, but how do you get through it with grace? So here we are in the beginning. You may be feeling one or all of these things. A lot of times we are consumed by the fear of the unknown. We don't know where we're going to live. We don't know how we're going to sustain our quality of life. Where's the money coming from? You also may be very excited about turning this next page and for the next chapter. Conversely, you may be devastated because it's not something that you wanted to do. We all arrive at this beginning point in different ways. You may be initiating, and you may have had an event where it is something that is inevitable and needs to happen. But no matter how you got here, your system, this body, this system is overwhelmed and on overload. We're overwhelmed by the logistics. We're overwhelmed by the emotions. Because if you've been on this path of figuring out if you want a divorce or not, and then deciding that divorce is the right thing for you, you're probably on this emotional roller coaster, and this is really common. So here is the first takeaway. If you're going to be taking notes, please jot this down. We want to begin with the end in mind. My secret sauce for getting through this path and this journey to an exciting, delightful life after divorce is to have a vision for your future before you even start making one decision, okay? I want you to picture what that life after divorce feels like. I want you to embody, what does that feel like when you visualize where you are after the divorce is final, where you're living, who you're with, what are you feeling? I want you to visualize that and journal it. And for some of us, it's hard to dream into what could be because we're overwhelmed with all the negative things that are happening right now. So if that's you and that's your case, I might suggest that you start with what you don't want to experience in your life, and then do a turnaround and turn it into the positive. And I'll show you what I mean here. So here's an example of creating your vision for your life after divorce. And before we get into that, I just want to say this was a secret sauce for me personally. If you don't know my story, I've also been divorced, actually 2 times. So you could say that I'm a hopeless romantic. I definitely believe in love. And this vision setting and understanding where I was going and where the path was leading me to was the most important thing that I did for myself in the beginning that got me through. Because you can do anything if you know the end goal in mind. So here's some client examples. I am in a home where I feel welcomed. I generally live a peaceful life. And you may have heard, I probably used the word peace 10 times already, and we're like 3 minutes into the presentation. And this is why, if you're not alone, if that's what you want, this is a common vision for most people that come through my office, is they just want a peaceful resolution. They don't want to feel in conflict anymore. Another example is I'm surrounded by more positive people than negative people. That's a good one. This next one I love. I don't beat myself up as much. And really that's talking about that negative self-talk. And then finally, I'm in a space where I feel what it's like to be loved. And that's really important, especially if you've been contemplating divorce for a while. A lot of times, and many of us have been in a space where we just haven't been connecting for years. So what would it look like for you to be in a house that was welcoming and loving, and you could fully arrive as you? So here's an example of a turnaround if this isn't accessible to you. If having a vision for what you want after divorce isn't accessible, that's okay. Let's just take what you know to be true today, the things that are bugging you, the things that are making you really sad and angry, and then we'll do a little turnaround to make it into something positive so you could vision a positive outcome for yourself. I don't want to be scared about my financial future. The turnaround may be something like, I want to feel like I have a clear path to get on my feet financially. Now this next example of a turnaround, it seems extreme, but I guarantee you every single one of us that has gone through this process has thought something like this. It's either I don't want to live under a bridge, or I don't want to be homeless, or I don't want to be a bag lady. These are all common fears that sit inside when we are going through such a time of uncertainty. So here's a turnaround. I want to live in a place that feels safe and secure for my family. We're acknowledging that we want a place. We don't want to just be out in the wild. We want a place that feels safe for us. And that may be different than what we are experiencing right now. And you want security. Okay, so I'm going to just check if there's any questions, any comments we have in here. Nope. Okay. So we're going to go to how do you choose on this empowered path. I acknowledge what's going on with you today on the overwhelm and overload as you try to make this decision of how to get divorced. And then I'm going to offer you what I consider to be the way. This is what I promised in this seminar is I'm going to show you exactly what I would do if I were in your shoes today. So here you are, choosing how. You've been Googling, you've been asking friends. This has been going on for, if you're on the seminar, you probably have been doing it for 3 months to 3 years, okay? You are in a space where you're looking at your finances, or maybe you're ignoring them, right? It's kind of a ping pong. You're looking at what you have, and then you're like, I can't do this right now. And you're overwhelmed by the logistics because what's being presented back to you is a lot of opinions and a lot of paperwork and flowcharts. And you're also overwhelmed by the emotions. Because in 1 minute, it's very, very normal for in 1 minute you to be decisive. This is what I need to do for my family. This is the next step that's right for me. And then go, but what if we can work it out? So your emotions are teeter-tottering. And it's overwhelming. Right, so if you Googled how to divorce in Colorado, you would come to, these are all forms that are on the state of Colorado court website. And you have an overwhelming flowchart over here. And if you're already on overload and overwhelm, looking at this flowchart doesn't seem very helpful. And then I put a little, a graphic of all of the required documents that the court needs in order to process and file your divorce. So where do you start? There are a few options that you have to the how to get divorced. One option is to fill out all that paperwork yourself. It's a DIY version. So the only cost involved is the cost to submit the initial petition for divorce. Then you have the option of hiring, or you have an option of hiring a mediator. You could do some of it yourself, also hire a mediator. Mediation is hiring a third-party neutral to help you and your spouse come up with an agreement that you negotiate in a peaceful way. You don't have to hire lawyers in that situation. You can, and I'll talk more about that later on. But using mediation is becoming more popular, and I'll show you why in a later slide. You could also opt to hire a lawyer to go to court, because there may be things in your situation, maybe issues in your situation, that you want a judge's ruling on. You want to bring everything into court. There are pluses and minuses with this, and hiring a lawyer for court is the most costly. Hiring a lawyer for collaborative law. This is where you hire a lawyer, your spouse hires a lawyer, and then the lawyers talk to each other and collaborate in that way. Well, in that scenario, you could leave all of the paperwork up to, most of the paperwork up to the lawyers to file and to talk about issues between them. And then there's a hybrid approach where you use a lawyer and you also use a mediator to come up with the final settlement. And that is my favorite way. So that is the empowered path for you. That's what I'm suggesting you take a look at, is to hire a mediator. So that's that third-party neutral where you and your spouse come together at the table. It's typically done virtually. We can do it in person. You hire a mediator to get into negotiation about your case, about your settlement. And so the issues that we're talking about in mediation, I'll cover in the decision-making section of the seminar. But the outcome of mediation is a memorandum of understanding. It's an MOU. So that's the outcome of mediation. And so that's the agreement on all these things that we need to make a decision on. And courts really like mediation. Even if you want to go to court, you'll see later on in my presentation where the jurisdictions require mediation before a judge will even see it. But here's a caveat. I suggest that you also hire a lawyer for unbundled services. When you hire a lawyer for unbundled services, you're doing not only a consultation, but you're also asking them to provide feedback on your case. So you're asking them to represent your side of things, but not necessarily represent you to go to court. So the way that this is cost effective for you is that you're paying for a smaller number of hours for them to review your case. And of course, they're representing your side. They're acting as your advocate. But you're not required to get that full retainer because you're not intending to go to court. And you're also not intending for them to do all of your paperwork. So that's a very cost-effective way to approach this, so that when you come to the mediation table, you are prepared with a point of view. You have a point of view on what you want to get out of this mediation. And you will also know your limits. You'll know your limits on what you're willing to negotiate on and what you're willing to go to court over. This is something that I discuss with each of my clients as well. So with that informed decision and feedback from a lawyer, you can come up with a robust scenario and proposal for mediation. Okay, so why mediator and lawyer, right? We have mediation has its advantages interpersonally and financially. Mediation is known for making the most of your time. You're doing your paperwork, you're bringing the information to the table, your mediator is helping you through the process. So financially, and usually they're a lower cost per hour than a lawyer. So you can come to some solution and agreements without that high price tag. And there is another advantage that isn't spoken about too much, and that is if you're co-parenting with this person, mediation can be a step toward amicable co-parenting and a relationship as a co-parent that is long-lasting, meaning you are willing to come to some agreements. You're willing to show up and make peace with some things. There are conversations that happen during mediation that aren't necessarily always directly related to the outcome that sow seeds of reparation between couples. This is what I've seen to be true. And this is why I do the work I do and feel so strongly that mediation is one of the best ways to divorce. And even if a mediator isn't the only expert that you're hiring, please include mediation in the process. Other ways you can include mediation is not for the whole package, not for the parenting plan and the financial agreement, but maybe it's just the parenting plan that you could have some help on. Legal consultation and review is essential if you feel like there's a power differential between you and your spouse, because in that legal consultation, you will have an advocate for you, right? And so you need that feedback so that you can feel confident coming to the mediation table. And you can use that information to craft an alternative outcome for mediation. So I always invite my clients to have one or two scenarios, one or two alternatives to present in mediation. You could also rely on the lawyer to review the outcome of the mediation, which is the MOU, or to field questions that come up during mediation. Maybe you need a more expert look at like stock options and how you're going to divide those. Well, you've already had a relationship with a lawyer, and so it's easier for you to go to that lawyer for those questions, and that speeds up the process. And in this empowered path, you take the expertise from your lawyer, you take the expertise from the mediator, and then you submit your agreements to the court. So you're submitting your forms and the MOU to the court. And in this way, again, you're saving time because you're in control of it. And if you hired a firm to do this, you're not in control of how they're prioritizing your case. And then it also saves you money because you don't have to pay a paralegal or a lawyer to do that. So I get this question all the time. What if we don't agree on all the issues in mediation? Even if you've hired a lawyer for the review of your case, you may not come to an agreement on every single issue. And so this is actually from the 20th Judicial District, that's Boulder County. This is a slide right out of their domestic relations orientation that's available online, and I have the source below. Your case will be set for a permanent orders hearing, where the judge will decide all the issues that the parties don't agree on. Okay, so that's what would be next. But here's the kicker. You're going to be required to mediate before your permanent orders hearing. So if you choose to just go the lawyer route and you don't agree on all the issues, you're still going to end up in mediation. So it's a big incentive for you to at least try in the beginning to do mediation. That leads us to decision making. So you're informed by the lawyer consultation. That's where you're at right now. And this is the phase of the path where you are figuring out what's best for your family. And mediation actually sets you up and empowers you in this way. If in the field, we believe that it's the way to take control of disputes. It's the way to take control back in a process that feels kind of out of control. Because what we understand is that you know what's best for your family. Mediators aren't going to come up with solutions for you. They're going to help you make the best solution for your family and the best decisions for your family, as opposed to going to court where the judge decides, right? The judge decides. In this process, you're going to give to get, right? You're going to give a little, you're going to get. And again, you got to know your limits when you're making decisions. You got to know the ones that, I'll share the issues here right now, the financial issues and the issues related to children. You're making decisions on each one of those. So there may be some of these where you have a very firm point of view. You absolutely need a specific outcome. And that's what I mean by knowing your limits. Because if those aren't agreed to, then you're willing to take it all the way to court. So here we are, decision making, and it is a marathon because you are going to come up against the wall. You know, the runners talk about that runner's wall, and you will be facing decision fatigue. This is why it's so important to have a solid divorce team as you go along, people that you can rely on to ask questions when it becomes too much and confusing. So here, let's just run down. For the financials, you're making decisions about real estate, your bank accounts and cash, retirement funds, stocks and stock options, 529s, and any other assets that you have incurred during the marriage. And of course, we're talking about support, spousal support here. As far as the children go and the parenting plan, that parenting plan has quite a few elements to it. We're talking about decision-making, parenting time, holidays, your summer schedule, parameters around traveling and communication, and support, child support. And these are just the required elements. All right, so I just want you to know these are the required elements for decision-making. These are all sections of the forms that you saw earlier in the presentation. Are there additional issues that are mediated or decided upon? Absolutely. Absolutely there are. But these are the core issues. And so this is a moment where I would just want to take a breath and say, before hiring professionals, you need to know the issues that you need expert help with, okay? When you go to a professional for that initial consultation, know your story. Know what the issues are that you're dealing with specifically. You know, the chaos of divorce is not unique. So set that aside for a moment and then say, what might be specific and unique to my case? And one of the reasons why I got into mediation, you know, because I've been in the field for 11 years, but became a mediator in 2021. And one of the driving factors here was I saw my clients and the parents I was working with as a CFI unprepared for the process. So my observation is that when you have friends and family that they were dissatisfied with the lawyers or mediators or mediation process, a lot of times that root cause is because they were unprepared. They were unprepared for what lied ahead, and they didn't take the time to understand their case and the unique issues in their case. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to ask yourself, out of all those decisions that were presented earlier, are there issues that you agree on? And if there are, record those. Put them in a document. When you are talking to your spouse, ideas and points of view can change on a dime. So it's really good to record the agreements. And I'm not saying necessarily that you want to use it as a fighting point in the future, but it's good for you. It's good for you to understand what you have the capability to come to an agreement on. Are there topics where you don't agree? List those issues out. And those are the issues that you're going to take to an expert to get help on. And so what experts are out there for you? Depending on the issue, you could talk to a lawyer. And so that's really helpful when you're talking about division of assets, support, parenting time, and parenting rights. Talk to a mediator to understand the process and what they can do to help you out. Talk to a CDFA. This stands for a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. So if a lot of your issues are around the finances, I would suggest going to a CDFA first to see what they have to say about your situation and some settlement opportunities and options. You might want to also rely on your CPA. It's not the same as a CDFA, but if you have a relationship with them, it's a good place to begin if you have some financial questions. And a lot of times they'll know people that you can talk to. And of course, a therapist. Because again, a piece of this journey, this roadmap is how to manage your emotions through this. And this therapist can be for you, your spouse. You could have marriage and family therapists together as you go through it. I've seen that work. And then of course for your kiddos, make sure that they have someone to talk to. And here are some questions for your lawyer. When you have those issues laid out, you can ask them, what are my rights? And what are your recommendations for a settlement on those things that we can't agree to? You can ask, can you help me prepare a few settlement alternatives for those issues, given everything that you agree to? Because they can help you understand, given all the things that you agree to, it's a whole package that you're coming up with in the settlement. And so you can ask them, hey, my spouse and I agree on a lot, but these are the things we don't. Can you give me a few alternatives that I can bring into mediation? And then you're going to want to ask them, what happens if I take all of this goodness into mediation and we can't agree on mediation? You want to know from this lawyer how they can help you from that point, what their strategy and approach would be moving forward. And that is how you become prepared for the mediation. Because when you agree on things, you're going to have a memorandum of understanding, awesome, that you can submit to the court, great. If you don't agree on everything, you'll know during that negotiating process what to do next, and it won't trip you up because you'll know in your mind, if we don't agree on these issues, these are the next steps. Okay, that was a lot. I'm going to check to see if we have any questions. There is Q&A at the end. Okay, I see none. We'll just keep going. All right, these last two milestones is just, hey, the divorce will be final. In the state of Colorado, once you submit your petition for divorce, the court has, I think it's 92 days to issue a divorce decree. So there is an end route to this. And if you get all of your paperwork submitted within that first couple months, you'll have that divorce finalized within 3 months. But it's not over. Final is not final when you have children, right? I want to just take a moment in this seminar to talk about co-parenting, because you are transitioning from a spouse to co-parent. You're not losing this relationship. It's a transition. And a lot of different families have different ways of doing it. Some families can remain close friends and it works. Some families can't talk about anything except for issues related to the children's schedule and health and safety, right? There's a middle way here, and my suggestion is that in that first 6 months to a year, that you're friendly, but not friends. Friendly, but not friends. This is maybe a room splitter here because a lot of people want to or have that ideal that they're going to remain close friends, and it may not be possible for you to move on if you are close friends in the beginning. So this friendly, not friends, is really so that gives you some room to become your own person. And if you've Googled co-parenting or divorcing, chances are you've read an article or two on having a spouse or divorcing a spouse with narcissistic personality disorder. If this is the case, if you are divorcing a narcissist or even someone who's just incredibly self-centered, this is the time where you have strong boundaries, right? Strong boundaries with how you communicate. And I put in here self-work, and that self-work really is reminding you where your seat of power is, it's right here, and where you have control. And the control that you have is within your reaction to things and within your attitude. And you cannot change the other person's behavior, no matter what. So here's a little bit more notes on co-parenting. I recently went through a training to become a parenting coordinator, and this was just really interesting information I gleaned. And I cited the source down here. Parental conflict consistently predicts negative outcomes for children. So we're always worried that divorce is going to negatively impact our kids, right? That is a core fear and a core worry. Listen, it's going to. It's one of those adverse childhood experiences, just like experiencing a death in the family or a natural disaster, a major move, right? Because there's a lot of change and a lot of loss that's happening for every single person in the family, and that includes your kids. But it's the parental conflict that consistently predicts the negative outcome for your kids. And those negative outcomes are even more pronounced when parental conflicts are consistently on high levels of hostility or aggression and are child-related. Right? So what does this mean? This means if you are constantly fighting with the other parent about the children, there are disputes about the children and involving your children, triangulating. This is when we have the most negative consequences on kids. So all of this is within your purview. Like, you have control over how high conflict you want to have this co-parenting relationship. If you are co-parenting with a very high conflict personality, this will be difficult. Please reach out to me if you want support at Boulder Divorce Mediation. You probably have my contact information if you're on the seminar, but reach out to me for specific ways that you can co-parent with a high conflict personality. But know that for the majority of us, it's within our control. So let's grow up and save the drama for someone else, but don't carry it around your kids. And here are my notes. The toughest transition time is that 1 to 3 years after divorce. So all of this like tough talk for you, it's going to be 1 to 3 years for you to manage that relationship. That's the toughest transition time. So my advice is to limit your interactions with your ex if possible in that first 6 months while healing. And that can be done through specific elements of your parenting plan. And no bad talking in front of the kids. They have radar ears. I mean, this is so easy to accidentally do. A friend or a parent calls and they are asking you, how's life? And you're telling them your story. Well, your story right now in this transition, in that first year of separation and divorce, a lot of times that story has to do with their other parent, and it can be negative. So just check it. Check those conversations, make sure the kids aren't in the room, or maybe even in the house if you have kids like mine. And just go to a friend, or bring it into therapy or coaching. And just to reinforce, that negative impact on the kids is not divorce itself, right? Yeah, it's an adverse childhood experience. We all have those. But that extreme negative impact of divorce on children is how the parents handle the divorce. Okay. Now, your beautiful life after divorce. I want you to be kind to yourself through this whole process. But once you have that divorce decree, you can probably take a breath of relief. I invite you to rekindle joys and hobbies that you might have had before the relationship. I know that's pretty exciting for people to do. And my personal experience on this is I used to be a theater kid, and I got into community theater again. And it was fun because it was something that I have a passion for, but also it presented a community that was different than the community I had made with my ex-husband. And so in that way, it was mine. And I was finding out who I was again. So I'd invite you to rekindle joys and hobbies, and then surround yourself with support. This is definitely a time to be, you can be ruthless with who you're surrounding yourself with in that first year, because you're vulnerable. You're in a huge state of transition. So surround yourself with supporting individuals and supportive communities. And I put in here that surround yourself with that support from the beginning, because do you see this graph? I mean, we're going a long road to get to life after divorce. So if you have support in the beginning, you're going to be less beat up, in the process, getting to your life after divorce. You won't be tossed around as much because you'll have that support. So how do you get that comprehensive support? How do you go from absolute overwhelm to feeling like, yes, I've reached the top, or at least a summit in that picture? Well, I'd like to introduce to you the Divorce in 30 Days program. This is a program that I put together so that you can have an effective, efficient, well-informed way to get all of your paperwork done and prepare for a successful divorce, yes, in 30 days. And although the judge will not be issuing a decree in 30 days, you can get everything ready and submitted to the court within 30 days. And that's what I'm going to help you do. This prepares you for a successful divorce. And here's what we do together in this program. We come up with a vision for your life after divorce, right? Because we're starting at the beginning. We come up with a strategy for divorce. So given your unique circumstances, how do you get divorced? I gave you my preferred way, but yours may be different and need to be different. We'll figure that out in this Divorce in 30 Days program. You'll get a completed financial statement. I'll help you fill out all that paperwork, a draft financial agreement, a draft parenting plan. We'll come up with a communication plan that really works for you and your co-parent, and a strategy to manage the emotional roller coaster that is inevitable on this path. And yes, all the paperwork that you saw, we will have either the draft or final versions by the end of the 30 days. So how do we do it? Well, I send you daily action items for 30 days, mapping out everything you need for a successful outcome. In addition to that plan and that roadmap forward, there are weekly office hours, so you can have me review your questions or your unique situation. And then also give you access to live workshops that I'm holding. Within this month alone, I will be doing how to create a parenting plan that works, creating your divorce team, and simplifying your separation agreement. So you have access to all of those live workshops. And the investment here is $9.97, but I do back it up with an investment guarantee. I've not seen this anywhere, but this is how much I believe in you. My 100% investment guarantee is that this course fee will be credited towards my services, Boulder Divorce Mediation Services. That means that you get 4 hours of my time, and that could go toward a mediation, should your spouse agree to it. It could go toward me reviewing your parenting plan, but dollar for dollar, I'm matching. And then I'd have some weekend bonuses for you. If you register before Monday, I want to give you these 2 things, okay? It's a private goal setting session with me. This is a one-on-one goal setting session that will help you define and work toward those personal and professional goals that you have post-divorce. This is super important. This is the thing I believe in most, is having an intention before you make any decisions on that path. And I am going to help you come up with those intentions and those goals. And then after all is said and done, after the 30-day program, I will also meet with you to personally review the documents that you have generated. I will review and provide valuable insight and feedback to get them in the best shape so that you can submit them to court, or you could submit them to your lawyer. So the sign up is below. We're going to get you from the beginning to the life after divorce. And this program is called Divorce in 30 Days, but you have access to it all year long. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to take questions. I have the link here. I'm just going to leave this up on the screen, but I am taking questions. Let's see. Who is live? Does someone want to ask me a question? Thanks for the feedback. I mean, this was so frustrating. That exact scenario was so frustrating to me, seeing that in my clients. I was in the role of a coach, and they were coming to me as a coach to get prepared for their mediation, even if they had hired lawyers. Some of my clients didn't even know if their lawyers were going to show up and represent them in mediation. It was mind-blowing, the lack of support that the community was providing for people going through this. So thank you for your feedback. And yes, it's so big, right? What you're deciding is so big when you come in the divorce settlement, because it's setting you up for the next chapter of your life, right? It's not only setting you up for financially, it's setting you up your day-to-day routine with your parenting plan. Your day-to-day routine is being determined by the decisions you're making right now. And my heart goes out to everyone in that situation, because you're making decisions when you're already on overload, right? You are already maxed out on decisions, and your body's full of cortisol, and you are in fight and flight mode or freeze. And it's hard to make decisions. This is why I offered the support, and why I offered at least a way forward if you don't join the Divorce in 30 Days. You at least now have a roadmap to make your own decisions. But I do invite you to come in to the program. I did have a few people email in questions. So if we don't have any other ones, let me go to those. I'm not going to show them on the screen. I'll just make sure that you have the link for enrollment. And I'm actually going to put that in the chat real quick. A link to the enrollment page. Because this enrollment page that I'm putting in the chat also has like FAQs, things that you might not want to ask live on here, but you can at least see. Okay. So there's where to sign up. I put that in the chat. And now I'm going to go to the questions that were submitted through email. And the first question comes from DL. They say, I'm currently separated from my husband. We've been living apart since his multiple affairs came to light. I'm leaning toward legal separation or divorce, but things are still incredibly raw, and anger levels are still very heightened between us. We are considering something that I'm calling a cash separation for this year, and making financial decisions about filing formally for divorce at the beginning of 2025. To me, this means that we would live separate lives this year, dividing our liquid assets in a way that we both can live, but they're not deciding to untangle any of our long-term wealth, like the home, retirement investments, until a later date. I feel that this might give us an opportunity to heal independently, find a calmer headspace, and enact legal separation once things have cooled down a bit. I'm concerned that there might be some precedent setting or other similar negative repercussions of doing this, and I'm looking for some advice to avoid any pitfalls. And then they go on to say, in case it's helpful, we also have 2 young kids, 3 and 5, and have been sharing custody, with me having them roughly 70 to 65% of the time. What do you think? Well, DL, thank you so much for sharing with me this scenario and allowing other people to hear a scenario, because people that are listening may relate. My reaction here is I hear your desire to want to live status quo and just financially divide some things and logistically figure it out in 2025. But logistically, if you're going to figure it out in 2025 and you want it finalized at the beginning of the year in 2025, you will need to start working on a plan this summer. You're going to need to work on a plan for that financial division of assets and your parenting plan. I would suggest starting this summer, because plan on it taking 3 to 6 months to finalize. And then I would just want you to take a moment and think of your mental state right now, after the holidays, and it feels pretty overwhelming for everyone right now. We're all diving back into work, and think of taking on another project after everything that has just happened a year from now. So you're deferring decisions that need to happen for another year. This may ease some of the pain that you're feeling immediately, but I caution you that it can build up. There may be a scenario where you cool off, but I'm going to just tell you my personal experience and what I've observed. People usually don't cool off after a year. When time goes by, what happens is it's more time for resentments to build and for communication to break down. So this financial arrangement that you have now will pull you through this, what I would consider a separation period. And I still think that you're poised to make some decisions in the summertime where it doesn't feel so hectic, and you'll have more data points 6 months from now than you do today about how the finances are working, how the parenting plan is working, and then you could come up with some decisions. But I would hesitate to wait for another year if it's not necessary. There are also maybe some tax implications and just financial implications about dividing things, on a handshake agreement for this next year. So I would definitely recommend seeing a certified divorce financial analyst or your CPA to get their viewpoint on this as well. And if you have any DL, if you need leads in that way, if you need some contacts, just let me know. Okay, just looking at the chat to see if there's anything more. Okay, and then we have one more that was emailed in, and this is a little bit of a story, but I wanted to tee it up and share this with the community, because this person did say, please share this with your community just in case someone's in the situation similar to mine, so they can hear the full story. And so thank you, Anna, for letting us hear what's going on with you and for letting me give you a little bit of insight and feedback. So here's what's going on from Anna. A major event took place after Thanksgiving that's triggered all this pushback from my husband's family and from my husband's request that I move out. Overall, my husband and I have been in a state of entanglement for the past 2 years. We bought a house that we knew was going to put us into some financial hardship, but both agreed that it would be a good investment and our best option with the market we were buying in. I say that as that has been a large portion of the underlying stress, a source of many arguments. So with the holidays upon us, the arguments and stress seemed to compound, and the arguments escalated more quickly, with little repair in between. So the event that she's talking about was Sunday after Thanksgiving. She came home from a long walk with the dogs and saw that all of her clothes were missing. Her lunch had been on the counter and it was all over the kitchen floor. And she goes on to say that I didn't say anything, and I started to clean up the mess, knowing that anything I said in that moment was probably not going to help the matter. My husband came into the room and it started. He would not let up and continued in this state and continued to criticize me, call me names, and place blame on how I'm not bringing in enough income. I've seen him in this state before, and it's best not to say anything, but just to sit, listen, and take it. But that time, this method was not working, and my lack of contributing to the argument seemed to make it worse. I started doing the bedtime routine and with our daughter, thinking that that would diffuse the situation, but it continued. And he continued following us into our daughter's bedroom, and I asked him to stop several times. He kept coming in and out of the room. At one point when he left, I texted a mutual friend to come pick my daughter and I up. So long story short, her daughter and her spent the night at a friend's house. And where things have gone in the last couple of weeks is that she's still at home and she feels like they're doing their best to keep the peace. However, there's still mention from her husband and her mother-in-law that if she thinks it's a good idea to leave, then she should, but her daughter cannot go. She goes on to say that my husband and his family have threatened that they will do everything in their power to make sure that I don't get custody of my daughter. What do I do with claims like that? Currently, I'm not responding in any way and just keeping my distance. Where do I start? So her question is, where do I start with divorce separation in regards to my daughter without coming across as being aggressive or causing a blow up? I hope to go through this process in a civil manner and just want to be sure I'm doing the next best thing to set myself up for success and not to cause an uproar. She's also asking, how do I let go and or navigate issues with my husband's family? Okay, there's so much going on there, and I just want to give a lot of sympathy and empathy to you for this. It's a really hard time to be going through this kind of conflict and to be hearing negative things about you. So in this situation, I always ask, where is my power? When things feel out of control, what do I have control over? And your power, Anna, in this situation is for you to come up with a clear path forward. I would suggest researching your rights, and after researching your rights, we do that by consulting with a lawyer and consulting with a mediator, similar to what I've laid out in this presentation, in this seminar, so that you have a firm idea of what your rights are, because then you can pick out what those threats that you're hearing from family and your spouse, the ones that are pretty empty threats, the ones that they're doing just because they're fearful, and the ones that might actually come to light. So, just my gut reaction is that you have parenting rights, right? You have parenting rights, and you need to know what your rights are to the house and to your child. And so after that consultation, you can have a clear path forward. Anytime we have a clear path, a destination in mind, understanding, who we can rely on as we go through a hard time, we feel more confident and courageous and powerful. It's just the truth. So you can't prevent a blowout. You can't prevent a blow up, right? You can't prevent him reacting anyway. There's no control you have there. The only control in that seat of power is within, and you have control over what expert information you get for your case, and then making a plan to move forward. Once you make that plan, I would tell him your decision. So you can't prevent him blowing up, but you can keep yourself safe. And I want you to do that. All right. So make sure that you keep yourself safe in that transition and in that conversation. You could have that conversation in a few different ways. You could have that conversation in the context of a marriage and family therapy session. You could have that conversation in public. You could have that conversation when you have people that you trust in the house, so that you have someone maybe like playing with your daughter in the house, a friend, a family member, so that you have a buffer and a witness if things get out of control. Again, you have parental rights to your daughter, and so you just want to know those rights before having the conversation, so that you don't have to argue these points, but you just have the knowledge, and you feel confident within yourself that those threats won't materialize. So this sounds like you sound like you're in a good spot to come into that Divorce in 30 Days program, because you're because you're certain that divorce is the answer for you at this point. And we can help you through every single step along the way and how to consult with a lawyer and make the most of the consultation. But really it is have a clear path forward, tell him your desires, and be safe while you do that. All right, everyone, it is 6 after 11. I'm going to check to see if anyone has typed in questions. We had some juicy questions come through email. I really appreciate you trusting me with your time today, trusting me with your stories. The feedback, thank you, Zvi, for the feedback on the consequences that it can have when you're not prepared. And please, if you're interested in this even just a little bit, I want you to reach out to me. Send me any questions you have about the Divorce in 30 Days program. We're enrolling right now. The program starts on the 19th, and your link is boulderdivorcemediation.com, divorce-in-30-days. And please stay warm out there and enjoy your weekend. I hope to talk to you soon. Take care.